Imagine a world where we could embrace all beings with a heart that knows no boundaries, a heart filled with pure compassion, unconditional love, genuine joy, and calm understanding. Imagine the possibilities. The four immeasurables, also known as the four sublime states, invite us to do just that, to cultivate a heart that is limitless, that holds all beings in its embrace. These profound teachings, central to Mahayana Buddhism and cherished by figures like the Dalai Lama, are a guide to creating a more compassionate, loving, and balanced life. They call us to grow in metta, loving-kindness, karu, compassion, mudita, sympathetic joy, and upekkha, equanimity. Think about it. What if every action you took was rooted in genuine love for others, in a wish for their happiness? This is what metta, loving-kindness, is about. It's about loving others without condition, without asking for anything in return, just like the sun shines on everyone, regardless of who they are. The Dalai Lama reminds us that we can extend this love to everyone, even those who might have hurt us. How often do we let resentment stop us from truly loving? Through loving-kindness meditation, we learn to break down the walls we build, walls that divide us from them. We learn to wish happiness for ourselves and for all beings, creating a connection that reminds us how interconnected we truly are. Love yourself, love others. Subscribe now for content that nurtures your heart and uplifts your spirit. Loving kindness, the path of unconditional love. Imagine sitting quietly, eyes closed, and focusing on a sense of warmth and love within yourself. You start by extending that love to yourself, because let's be honest, how often do we forget to truly love ourselves? We are often our own harshest critics, burdened by self-judgment and the weight of expectations. To practice metta, we first learn to treat ourselves with the same kindness we would offer to a dear friend. As you breathe in, you say to yourself, "May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering." Once we've cultivated this sense of loving kindness for ourselves, we gradually extend it outward, to our loved ones, our friends, acquaintances, strangers, and eventually even those with whom we have conflicts. This expansion is a practice of breaking down boundaries and seeing the humanity in everyone. Just think, how different would the world be if we could see beyond the labels and divisions that often define us, if we could love everyone simply because they, like us, want to be happy. The Dalai Lama reminds us that cultivating loving kindness doesn't mean we have to agree with or condone harmful actions. Instead, it's about seeing beyond the actions to the inherent worth of every being. When we look deeply, we realize that everyone, even those who have wronged us, is acting from a place of wanting to be happy, however misguided their actions may be. This realization helps us to let go of anger and resentment, allowing love to take their place. It's not easy, in fact, it's one of the hardest things we can do, but it's also one of the most transformative. Practical loving-kindness meditation. To cultivate loving-kindness, practitioners often engage in a meditation practice called metta bhavana, which means the cultivation of loving-kindness. This practice is typically done in stages, and it begins with oneself. Why start with oneself? Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. We must learn to extend love to ourselves before we can authentically extend it to others. Imagine sitting comfortably, taking deep breaths, and repeating phrases like, "May I be happy. May I be well. May I be at peace." This process helps us nurture a sense of care and warmth toward ourselves. Once this sense of self-love is established, the meditation moves outward. The next stage is to extend loving kindness to someone we deeply care about, someone who evokes feelings of warmth effortlessly. It could be a family member or a close friend. Picture them, imagine them smiling, and wish for their happiness. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be at peace. Feel the warmth in your heart as you extend these thoughts. From here, the practice moves to a neutral person, someone we neither like nor dislike, someone who might barely register in our daily life, like the barista who made your coffee or a person you saw walking their dog. This part of the practice is crucial because it challenges us to extend love beyond our circle of affection, reminding us that every being is deserving of happiness. The final and most challenging stage is extending loving kindness to someone we have difficulties with, an enemy or someone who has caused us harm. This is where true growth happens. Imagine that person and say, "May you be happy. May you be well. May you be at peace." It might be difficult at first, but with time, this practice can soften the edges of anger and resentment, helping us to see that, at their core, even those who hurt us are seeking happiness in their own flawed ways. Compassion, the heartfelt desire to alleviate suffering. And then, there's karu, compassion. When was the last time you saw someone in pain and felt moved to do something, anything, to ease that suffering? Compassion isn't just about feeling sorry for someone, it's about being willing to stand beside them, to share their burden, and, if possible, to alleviate it. The Dalai Lama often speaks about bodhicitta, the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Isn't that the ultimate expression of compassion, to strive for our own growth, not just for ourselves, but for everyone? When we open ourselves to the suffering of others, we stop being so consumed by our own worries, our own fears. We realize that all beings share the same wish, to be free from suffering. This realization helps us transcend our self-centered tendencies, inviting us to live from a place of genuine connection. Compassion requires us to be vulnerable. It asks us to open our hearts to the pain of others, to let down our defenses and acknowledge that suffering is a universal experience. It's easy to become numb to the pain of others, especially in a world where suffering is so prevalent. We see images of people in distress, read about tragedies, and hear stories of loss, and sometimes, it feels like too much. But what if, instead of turning away, we allowed ourselves to feel that pain? What if we let it move us to action? The Dalai Lama often emphasizes that compassion starts with understanding. To truly help alleviate suffering, we must first understand its causes. In Buddhism, suffering is often linked to attachment, aversion, and ignorance, the three poisons. By recognizing these tendencies in ourselves and others, we can begin to address the root causes of suffering. Compassion isn't just about feeling, it's about doing. It's about being willing to act, even in small ways, to make the world a better place for others. Practicing compassion in daily life. Compassion can be practiced in many ways, both big and small. It might mean volunteering your time to help those in need, or it could be as simple as listening deeply to a friend who is struggling. True compassion is active, it's about stepping into the world and making a difference. The Dalai Lama teaches that the aspiration to help all beings, known as bodhicitta, is the highest form of compassion. Bodhicitta is the desire not only to alleviate the suffering of others but also to attain enlightenment so that we can be of greater benefit to all beings. It's a profound and beautiful aspiration that reminds us that our own growth is intimately tied to the well-being of others. One way to cultivate compassion is through a practice called Tonglen, which means taking and sending. In this meditation, you imagine breathing in the suffering of others and breathing out love, comfort, and healing. It's a powerful practice that helps us to develop empathy and a genuine desire to alleviate the pain of others. It might seem counterintuitive, breathing in suffering, but this practice helps us to realize that we have the capacity to transform suffering into love and compassion. Another important aspect of compassion is self-compassion. How often are we kind to ourselves when we're struggling? Many of us are quick to judge ourselves harshly, to feel that we're not good enough. But true compassion starts with ourselves. When we can be gentle and understanding with our own pain, we become more capable of extending that same kindness to others. Self-compassion involves recognizing our own suffering, acknowledging that it's a part of the human experience, and treating ourselves with the same care we would offer to a dear friend. Sympathetic joy, celebrating the success of others. Mudita, sympathetic joy, is perhaps one of the most beautiful qualities to cultivate, but also one of the most challenging. Can you truly feel joy for someone else's success without feeling that tinge of envy or comparison? Imagine how freeing it would be to let go of jealousy, to celebrate the happiness of others as if it were your own. The Dalai Lama teaches that rejoicing in others' good fortune creates a sense of abundance in our own hearts. There's enough happiness to go around, enough love, enough success, if only we could see it that way. By practicing sympathetic joy, we begin to shift our mindset from one of scarcity to one of interconnected prosperity. The joy of one becomes the joy of all. In our culture, we're often taught to compete with one another, to measure our worth based on how we stack up against others. This mindset creates a sense of lack, as if someone else's success somehow diminishes our own. But what if we could change that narrative? What if we could see others' happiness and success as an opportunity to feel joy, rather than as a threat? This is the essence of mudita. Cultivating sympathetic joy. To cultivate sympathetic joy, we can start by consciously celebrating the successes of those around us. When a friend gets a promotion, instead of feeling envious or comparing their success to our own situation, we can genuinely feel happy for them. We can say to ourselves, "I'm so glad they're happy. May their joy continue." It's a simple practice, but over time, it shifts our perspective. We begin to see that someone else's happiness doesn't take away from our own, in fact, it adds to it. Another practice is to meditate on the happiness of others. Sit quietly and think about someone who has experienced good fortune. Visualize them, see their smile, and allow yourself to feel joy for them. Imagine that joy radiating outwards, touching everyone around them. This practice helps to dissolve feelings of envy and competition, replacing them with a genuine sense of interconnectedness. The Dalai Lama often speaks about the interconnected nature of all beings. When we realize that we are all connected, it becomes easier to feel joy for others, because their happiness is, in a way, our own. This interconnectedness is the foundation of mudita. It's about recognizing that we are all part of the same human family, and that the happiness of one contributes to the well-being of all. Equanimity, finding balance in a world of change. And then there is upekkha, equanimity. Oh, how difficult it can be to remain calm and balanced, especially when life throws us curveballs. But true equanimity is not about becoming detached or indifferent. It's about seeing all beings with a heart that's free from bias, loving them without clinging, and understanding that everything, every joy, every sorrow, is impermanent. How often do we get caught up in our attachments, clinging to things, people, and experiences, only to suffer when they inevitably change? Equanimity teaches us to hold all of life lightly, to accept its ebb and flow, and to love deeply without becoming lost in attachment. This state of mind is a source of profound peace, one that isn't shaken by the ups and downs of life. Equanimity doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we care deeply, but without clinging. It's about finding a middle path, caring for others and being involved in the world, but not being overwhelmed by it. The Dalai Lama teaches that equanimity is about seeing the bigger picture, recognizing that all beings are deserving of love and compassion, regardless of our personal feelings toward them. It's about letting go of the rigid distinctions we often make between friend and enemy, and seeing the inherent worth in everyone. Practicing equanimity in daily life. Equanimity can be cultivated through reflection and mindfulness. One practice is to reflect on the impermanent nature of all things. Everything we experience, every emotion, every relationship, every possession, is subject to change. By reflecting on this, we begin to loosen our grip on things, understanding that clinging leads to suffering. When we hold things lightly, we can appreciate them without becoming attached. Another practice is to cultivate a sense of impartiality. This means treating all beings with the same care and respect, regardless of their relationship to us. It's easy to be kind to those we love, but what about those we dislike or those who are indifferent to us? Equanimity challenges us to extend our kindness equally, to recognize that every being has the same wish for happiness and the same fear of suffering. In times of difficulty, equanimity allows us to maintain our balance. When faced with challenges, we can remind ourselves that this too shall pass. Equanimity doesn't mean suppressing our emotions, it means allowing them to arise and pass without becoming overwhelmed. It's about finding a place of calm within ourselves that remains steady, even in the face of life's storms. The ripple effect of the four immeasurables. The Dalai Lama encourages us to practice these qualities through introspection and meditation. Imagine sitting quietly, reflecting on these four qualities, letting them take root in your heart. How different would our world be if we could all cultivate this kind of love, compassion, joy, and balance? By practicing the four immeasurables, we don't just change ourselves, we create ripples that transform the world around us. Every act of kindness, every compassionate thought, every celebration of another's joy, every moment of equanimity, these are the seeds of a more peaceful, loving world. It's not easy. The path is long, and sometimes it's hard. We will stumble. We will face our own limitations, our own shadows. But what a worthy journey it is. A journey where the reward is not just our own inner peace, but a profound sense of connection to all beings, to the vast web of life. Perhaps this is the true meaning of happiness, not in material wealth or fleeting pleasure, but in knowing that we have contributed, in our own small way, to a more compassionate and peaceful world. So, what do you think? Are you ready to take on this challenge, to cultivate these immeasurable qualities in your life? To make loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity the very foundation of who you are? If we all took even a small step toward this, just imagine the kind of world we could create together. A lifelong commitment to the four immeasurables. Practicing these qualities is a lifelong endeavor. It requires patience, dedication, and a willingness to confront our own limitations and negative tendencies. However, the rewards are immense, not only for the individual practitioner but for all those whose lives they touch. By cultivating loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, individuals can contribute positively to the world, creating a ripple effect of goodness that extends far beyond their immediate environment. The Dalai Lama often emphasizes that true happiness is not achieved through material wealth or selfish pursuits, but rather through a heart filled with compassion and love for others. It is through these practices that individuals can cultivate true contentment and contribute to a more compassionate and peaceful society. The four immeasurables are not abstract concepts, they are practical tools that can be applied in everyday life. Whether it is through offering a kind word to someone in distress, celebrating the success of a colleague, or maintaining a calm and balanced attitude in the face of adversity, these qualities have the power to transform both the individual and the world around them. By embracing the four immeasurables, one can develop a profound sense of connection with all beings and work toward the greater good, ultimately realizing the boundless potential for love, compassion, and peace that lies within each of us. Reflecting on the journey. As we reflect on the journey of cultivating the four immeasurables, it's important to remember that this path is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about making a commitment to grow, to be better today than we were yesterday. There will be times when we fall short, when anger gets the best of us, when envy creeps in, when we feel disconnected. But each of these moments is an opportunity to practice, to return to the qualities we wish to embody. Consider keeping a journal of your experiences with the four immeasurables. Write about the moments when you felt truly connected to loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, or equanimity. Write about the challenges, too, the moments when these qualities felt out of reach. Reflecting on these experiences can help you to see your growth over time, to recognize the small but meaningful changes that are happening within you. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. The four immeasurables are qualities that connect us to all beings. As you practice them, you are joining countless others who are also striving to create a more loving and compassionate world. Together, our efforts can create a powerful wave of positive change, a wave that can bring healing, joy, and peace to our world. The power of community in cultivating the four immeasurables. While the practice of the four immeasurables is deeply personal, it's also profoundly communal. Practicing these qualities in community can amplify their effects, providing support and inspiration for each individual's journey. Imagine a group of people gathered together, meditating on loving kindness, sharing their experiences, and encouraging one another. The energy of such a group can be transformative, creating a sense of belonging and shared purpose. Consider joining or forming a group dedicated to the practice of the four immeasurables. This could be a meditation group, a study group, or simply a gathering of friends who want to support one another in cultivating these qualities. Sharing your journey with others can provide motivation and accountability, helping you to stay committed to the practice even when it's challenging. The impact of the four immeasurables on the world. The practice of the four immeasurables has the power to transform not only individuals but also society as a whole. Imagine a world where people approach one another with loving kindness, where compassion is the guiding principle of our actions, where we rejoice in each other's successes, and where we maintain a balanced and peaceful mind in the face of challenges. Such a world may seem like a distant dream, but it begins with each of us, with our own commitment to embodying these qualities in our daily lives. When we practice loving kindness, we contribute to a culture of care and empathy. When we practice compassion, we address the suffering that exists in our communities and work to alleviate it. When we practice sympathetic joy, we create a culture of abundance and celebration, where everyone's successes are valued. And when we practice equanimity, we contribute to a culture of balance and peace, where people are not divided by their differences but united by their shared humanity. Conclusion. The four immeasurables are an invitation to live with an open heart, to see beyond the limitations of the ego, and to connect deeply with all beings. They are a call to action, to cultivate qualities that bring about true happiness and contribute to the well-being of others. They are a reminder that we all have the capacity for profound love, compassion, joy, and peace, qualities that can transform our lives and the world. So, are you ready to take on this challenge? Are you ready to make loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity the foundation of who you are? The journey may not be easy, but it is one of the most rewarding paths you can take. With each step, you will not only find greater peace within yourself, but you will also contribute to the creation of a more compassionate, loving, and harmonious world. Let us walk this path together, one step at a time, one breath at a time, one moment of kindness at a time. Together, we can create a world where the four immeasurables are not just ideals, but living realities that shape our lives and our communities.